Welcome to the Four Visions Market Podcast, a space built on the principles of integrity and reciprocity. Together, we will engage in thought-provoking conversations about plant medicines, why these plants are coming out of the rainforests, jungles, and mountains after thousands of years, and what it means to be in right relationship with the ancestral wisdom cultures and guardians of these traditions. I'm your host, Mariah Ganessa, founder and director of Four Visions Market. This podcast is the natural evolution in our commitment to providing you, our tribe, with incredible resources to support you on your healing journey through plant medicines. Welcome home. Welcome back, Four Visions family. Thank you so much for tuning in to another beautiful episode. Today, I am really excited to be sitting down with Aluna Lua. Aluna Lua is the founder and CEO of the multimedia production company Ascension Arts. She works as a performing artist, speaker, ceremony guide, plant medicine integration coach, and expert tobacco keeper and combo practitioner. Lua is from Brazil and was raised as a performance artist and dancer in Sao Paulo. After 14 years of deep initiations with the Santo Daime Church and multiple indigenous tribes in Brazil and South America, Lua now lives in Los Angeles and serves her community as a respected ally of indigenous communities, guardian of the medicines, and trusted ceremony facilitator. As a successful entrepreneur, Lua has developed a passion in teaching sacred business, creative direction, and branding with the intention of supporting her clients to generate sustainable wealth, live in sacred reciprocity with wisdom keepers, and create positive impact in the world through beautiful art. Aluna Lua, welcome to the show. It's such a pleasure to connect with you, sister, and I'm very excited to dive into today's conversation. You have such a beautiful background and story, and I would love to start off and hear a little bit about your journey. It sounds like one very rich with beautiful lessons and encounters and magical happenings and synchronicities. So maybe we can begin with you just giving us a little introduction to who Lua is.
Well, I was born and raised in Brazil. I've been living in the US for 10 years. And I started my medicine path, my spiritual path when I was 19. Before that, I was a little druggy raver and was just doing all kinds of things, having great psychedelic experiences, but was definitely not spiritually connected. I was eating very poorly. I had a lot of resentment in my body. I could see that I was going to these parties to just escape of my life until there was one festival that I took a big dose of LSD, the biggest I've ever had, and had my first spiritual awakening. And that completely changed me. I was having all these visions. I could see like, oh my God, God is real. Wait, God is real? Really? It was a whole process. And I was saved by an indigenous man that found me in this festival and offered me support. He's like, hey, do you want support? I'm like, oh my God, please help me. I don't know what's going on. He takes me to this sacred fire and prays for me, gives me so many blessings, smudges me, and offers me hape medicine. And I had no idea what that was. And I completely trusted this guy. It's like, whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do it. So he applied me the medicine, and I immediately felt safe, immediately. And it was very uncomfortable at the same time because I could see all the density that was in my body. And I had my first spiritual purge, I would say. And even though it was very surprising to me, that day completely changed my life because I could see me just purging and letting go of all the things that were holding me back, all the bad things that I was putting in my body, the drugs, the food, the people. It was a clear message of what I needed to do to be a better person, to be happier. And it was immediate change. I'm so grateful for this man, Mineiro. You changed my life. just a forever guide of my life. And that's how everything started for me. So after that, got deep in plant medicine work and moved here to US 2013. And the mission got even bigger when I moved here to be able to be a bridge for the indigenous communities. So my entire life, I had no idea that this is who I would become today. And that's why I'm here, I guess. It's a lot of stories, a lot that brought me here to be able to share about this path. So thank you for having me.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing, and what a wonderful awakening story. And a lot of people, their first experience with plant medicine is not Hape. Some people it is, especially nowadays, but that's a beautiful thing that that's how you got introduced to plant medicine. And it was such a powerful experience for you that it opened everything up. I love that. When you say that, your work is in bridging and being a bridge for the indigenous communities, could you share with us a little bit more about what that means for you, what it entails?
Yeah, totally. So when I was in Brazil, just doing my path, following my path, I was going to Santo Daime, and then I met these people that were traveling the world to meet indigenous people. I was like a band that I got in. Suddenly, it was part of a band, and this band was traveling South America. And we went to a festival. We met a lot of tribes at once, and that opened up a path of relationships with some indigenous people from multiple tribes. So I had the privilege, the blessing to be able to travel and to meet multiple tribes in Brazil, or in one gathering or in separate. And it was really personal relationships, was meeting certain indigenous people that really needed our help, maybe wanting going to São Paulo and needed a place to stay, or wanted us to join their protests to protect their land, or to share something for them on the internet that was not being shared. It really started there, this path of like, wow, I have indigenous friends, and feels really nice to be able to support them and at the same time be so supported by them, being able to sit with them, being able to ask them questions, receive their blessings. I received so many blessings from indigenous friends, really wanting help. I remember asking a leader like, "Hey, I feel like I'm cursed or something. Like there's this energy going on and these things that doesn't get resolved." And he came all the way to my house and blessed my entire house. It was like, wow, I can't even believe that they took that effort for me. So when I moved to the US, I was invited to be a guardian in a ceremony of a Huni Queen leader. And I was so excited to go and to be able to translate, support in however I could. And that ceremony opened up a big path for me that I wasn't expecting, which was the need of having someone like me that can speak Portuguese, that have contacts in Brazil, at the same time being a person here in the US that could support them with their travels, with their medicine transportations, with translation and relationships. I didn't even know of how much of that they were working with international people, and how much there was a need of someone like me to be able to support that communication. So that just kind of completely opened up of like, oh, wow, I have all these friends. I know all these people. And now I get to connect with the people that have helped me in years in my life. And we get to actually do relationships and still be in this path of love and medicine work from afar. So it kind of became a mission for me, a pleasure. And also, many ups and downs that we can really talk about that. But it kind of, this path came to me as a blessing, was a calling that I accepted. There's no other way around it. It's like when you realize that you can help and you are important, and the your natural skills of just being from there can make such a difference here. This path just brings me a lot of fulfillment and joy to be able to be in relationships with these people. And another thing I would say about this is that these relationships are very long. They're decades of relationships. And I think that's something important to say. It's not just because I'm Brazilian that I'm going to work with anybody there. These relationships are very old, or I know them personally, or it's close connection. And I think that's what I carry in my heart. It's like, this is deep. It's deep relationships. It's not just, oh, I know someone there. Is people that are part of my life and my community for a long time.
That's beautiful. Yes, I have a lot of resonance with that as I've done so much bridge work for my Colombian taita and the translation, and just being able to play these roles in supporting these connections in taking place is such a beautiful honor and blessing, and so special to hear more about that. And also, we have so many people contact us in our community looking for more experiences to connect directly with Indigenous medicine men and women. Because obviously, there's plant medicine all over the place these days, but there is such a wide range of both Indigenous and non Indigenous and lineage holders and universal styles. And so there's so many different cups of tea when it comes to working with the plant medicines. And been so beautiful because part of our work with Four Visions is to really open that door and to share and educate people about the traditional use of these plants and the traditional wisdom cultures, as well as potentially make those connections for our community members to have those direct experiences. I love that you mentioned that because uh I would love to start opening up more opportunities for our listeners, for our customers, and getting to connect, make more connections for people. A lot of people are tapped into, the Indigenous medicine communities, especially in the US, because there's a lot happening right now. There's a lot of different Indigenous medicine men and women traveling to the US, to Europe, and it's beautiful. It's incredible to watch all of the intercultural exchange that's starting to take place. But depending on where people are located in the United States, they may or may not have access. They might not know anyone who has direct connection to, traditional Indigenous ceremonies. But it is definitely something that people contact us about regularly and want to be connected. So I love that you mentioned that, and I just want to drop that there because I feel like for any listener who might be interested in connecting with the communities that you are in relationship with, that's open and that's a wonderful way to connect with you.
Yeah, thank you. One thing I want to share about that is that happens to me too. People come to me and say, "Oh, I'm in São Paulo. Can you tell me where to go? I want to take ayahuasca." And it's like, it doesn't work like that. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't have a place for you to just call and say, "Hey, I'm friends of Lua. Drop me in this weekend." I think sometimes people tend to think that that's how it works. Like, "Hey, Lua, I want to have a direct contact with an Queen person." I'm like, "Okay, like, let's make that happen." But it's not something like, "Oh, here's their phone number. Just reach out to them and they're going to answer," right? I'm just saying this because I think there's some sort of, yeah, rush sometimes in how people want to have these experiences. And in the reality of it is that you might be in Sao Paulo and I might even, be able to connect with a place, but these places need to really sit. They're not just open for the public. Or let's say an Indigenous person might not even be on the phone often or being available to receive guests. So, what I have to share with people that want to connect with Indigenous people is to know that this is a long path. If they come in your area, if an elder comes in your area, oh my God, you're blessed knowing that they are in deep work. They're doing deep work in the world. They are in a big mission. And we get to embrace that opportunity as well as get connected to them personally, right? So that they can tell you, "Oh, yeah, my people, we do receive guests at this time of the year." Or my people don't receive guests at all. And be in direct contact. That's why it's so important to the bridge people, because the bridge people will be the ones that you can stay in contact with and be that person like, "Hey, this is happening. You're invited. This is for you. Hey, this is actually just happening in 2 years from now." or hey, this person is not available, or hey, this person is coming through. The bridge people are important because they're going to give you that information. But what I have to say is that if this is a calling, it's a long time calling that might take you out of your comfort zone. Going to see the indigenous people in the Amazon can be a very wild experience, however necessary, if that's part of your path. It would change your life forever. There's no comparison. And that's what they want. They want people to go visit them. Some of them, right? Not all of them, but the ones that do, they really believe that you going there to receive their blessings, not to have a training, not to have a medicine training, to actually go to heal and receive all of their rituals and everything that they have to offer. They do believe that that's the way we get to carry these medicines in the world with integrity and being in right relationship with the earth. Them coming to us is a big deal. Absolutely. It's like bringing a little bit of the Amazon to the world, but it's still not the same as going to see them where they live. So I'm just sharing this because to bring some clarity that this path is not just like an e-commerce thing of like, let me book this, Hunikuing Airbnb. Let me buy their training and let me go there. It's like, it doesn't work like that. And some people don't even want to try. And that's an invitation too. It's like, why? Because there's a reason why they are opening their doors for us. The ones that are, there's a big calling there that if we also want to deny it because it's too hard, there is something there to be addressed, because they are the ones that are so genuinely offering their wisdoms and medicines because they want the best for us and they want the best for the earth.
This is beautiful. I'm so happy you brought this to the conversation, especially the part about not rushing, because I feel like that's something that I talk a lot about, and it's a very important part of sustaining a spiritual path. And when we, from the Western culture specifically, when we first get going, it's like this excitement can sometimes take the lead, and we kind of get ahead of ourselves a little bit. And so I really just appreciate everything that you just shared. And there's a lot of important elements that can maybe funnel into the next part of the conversation, because, there's this element of preparation, I think, to meet with an Indigenous leader or Indigenous wisdom keeper in a good way, especially coming from a different culture, to come and sit with a different tradition and have the blessing of them welcoming you into their community, or they come to you and you get to sit and receive from them in your homeland. Either way, this is a very sacred encounter, one that is a true blessing, like you said, and an honor. And so when you mentioned that it maybe isn't for right now that you get that connection, like, I think that that's really important to really highlight, because if we're walking the plant path, there's a lot of really good preparation that can be done, so that when we do have an encounter with a wisdom keeper or a lineage carrier, we're able to really come in a really good way, as well as even maybe potentially be aware of some of the cultural differences and some of the elements that could go into a realm of misunderstandings, or just, responding differently than our culture does. And so that's a really important thing to address, I feel, especially for anyone who's wanting to form relationships with traditional medicine people and traditional cultures. And so I would love to hear a little bit of your experience, as a Brazilian. And I think it's really beautiful too, the ways in which the non-Indigenous Brazilian people have played such a fundamental role in supporting the resurrection and the return of the power to the Indigenous peoples. And so every time I meet a Brazilian who walks with the plants but is not Indigenous, I always love hearing their perspectives, because I feel like it also helps bridge the cultural gap for me, because perhaps you don't have the same culture as the Indigenous Brazilian communities, but I don't even have a Brazilian context. So there's even some cultural gaps there that can be challenging at times. And especially for you who now live in the US and have a very good comprehension and understanding of our culture. I would be very curious to hear a little bit of your reflections on some of the different intricacies of, the Indigenous people's perspectives, as well as, what this cultural exchange can really look like in the most well-balanced way or the most respectful way.
So, in my times in Brazil, I had to just figure it out, right? I want to go to the indigenous people because I met an indigenous person and then they invited us to go. And then the process of going, it's really like, yeah, most Brazilians are broke. And if you want to take a spiritual path like that and leave the matrix world, maybe you have a job or something. I had a full-time job. For me to have these kind of travelings that were so out of the regular world, it was a deep self power. Like you had to really want to do that, and then travel in a bus for I don't know how many hours, go across the country, figure it out how these experiences will happen, and they will happen in a way. It's like it is what it is. Now you go, something happened, you got your purse, someone stole your money or something, you lost your purse, and then what? What do you do? Who's taking care of you? Who is responsible? I didn't get none of that. I just had to figure it out and go from my heart. That's why it's all about personal connections with particular people that brought me to particular places. And that's why I'm there. What I like about Brazil is that the plant medicine cultures, they're very connected to the indigenous people. They have strong, easy access. It's a deep relationship. Even though Santo Daime churches have their own ceremony ways, they are very connected to indigenous leaders. Sometimes there's interlaps, there are guests coming in different areas. Even shamanic circles that are more modern ways. People go to the tribes, visit the tribes. So there's a big interlap between these cultures there. And I think that's really cool. It's really important. However, I can see in the US that people put also indigenous people as gods, as if all indigenous people are pure. And in my experience, that is not true. It's really each individual. You have to based on the individual, not in who they are, because that is causing a lot of harm in the world. I feel like in Peru, there's even more cases of abuse and, putting these indigenous people in a pedestal. In Brazil is really about who you are. Let me meet you and let me become friends of you. And now I support you. It's really personal to each individual. These days, I think it's really cool that now in the psychedelic renaissance, we are understanding the importance of cross culture and really respecting the Western ways. So maybe someone that never met an indigenous person, like you said, never had any even a Brazilian friend, want to go to the tribes. If they're gonna just go like I did, old school, it's probably gonna be a very difficult, challenging experience in so many levels: language, money, connections, basic needs being met, all of it. So these days, we have these organizations like the Plant Spirit School, for example. I'm a head coach of the Plant Spirit School, and Lorna Liana is a genius in really bridging the cultures so that if you want to go to see the tribes with a group that is adaptive to the modern ways, that can support the understanding, the integration, the preparation, the translations, and really create an experience that you're going there to have, to meet them and to experience their land. At the same time, you are in a community that has the same basic needs and thought processing that you have, that is also going to go back to your life and be able to be in your life. I think that's so important. I didn't have integration. I didn't know integration practitioner. That was not a thing. That was absolutely not a thing. I didn't even know what integration was until not so long ago. So these days we're very blessed that we get to interlapse these cultures in that way. You can take your choice. You can still go on your own if you have a personal relationship, if that's what you want to do. But you can also know that you get to be more supported if that's what you really want, and be able to have that connection and experience in a way that's not going to be all amazing, but also is going to bring you knowledge to your life. Like in the Plant Spirit School, we're going to Brazil in March, and we're doing this 8 weeks program. So it's the retreat that we're going there to sit with our Indigenous friends, but we're also preparing, integrating, and learning, getting training on hold space skills. So I think that's a blessing. I wish I had that 10 years ago. My life would be very different. So that's what I want to share with people. These days, you get to really find your true community and how you want to do this work, and do it in a way that you really know what connections people are doing, the relationships that these communities are creating, and see what resonates with you.
Beautiful. I love that, and so important, and so many important points there. And it's true. I think that, especially once you start walking the plant path, there's like this excitement to just like even generalize like indigenous wisdom keepers as, the end all be all. And it's important, this point that you made, I feel like it's really important to recognize that most of these indigenous communities are just now recovering and resurrecting their cultures after hundreds of years of genocide and complete destruction of their people and their stories and their culture. And so they are very much in a healing process too. And so perhaps, going to a tribe 400 years ago, 500 years ago, we might have found like a more holistic experience where all of the tribe members were very much connected and rooted to their traditions and very much representing the cosmology of their people through their words, thoughts, and actions. But with the introduction of so many Western things, right? Not just like the mass genocide and colonization, but also just the introduction to simple things like processed foods and alcohol and cigarettes. These are all things that have wreaked complete havoc on indigenous communities. And so they are in the healing process, and each tribe is in a different place with that healing process, and helping their youth to remember and return to their cultural roots. And so to really not generalize, I feel like that's a really wonderful piece of advice to give people, to really check references, to really, get on the personal level and do your due diligence to evaluate whether this is someone that you want to have a relationship with, or whether it's someone that you want to receive medicine from, whether it's someone that you want to receive counsel or guidance from. These are important questions, and we can't just write them off just because they are indigenous, and that's not to say that we can't support indigenous communities and really just give back for the simple principle of supporting them in this overall vision of empowerment and return, but to really have this level of discernment when it comes to working with indigenous medicine people. And at the end of the day, we're all humans, and we're all healing, and in this day and age, in this time of humanity's evolution, the plants are here as a guide, but they're healing both us as Westerners, new people coming into the communities, receiving the blessings of these ancestral wisdom cultures, and they're very much also healing the communities from which they come. And so it does go both ways.
Hmm. Yes, thank you for saying that. Especially because we think we want to help sometimes, and we don't want to listen to what they really need. Sometimes people come and like, "Oh, I want to help. Give me a bank account. I want to make a donation." I'm like, "Bro, I don't have a system that I can just pass donations like that anytime. Like, I have to pay taxes of each dollar that comes to my account. So maybe that's not the way to support right now, is to just send a direct donation, but maybe you can be in touch and support this cause here, or maybe support us to promote this cause here. That will be even a better help at this point. And then people are like, oh, that's too hard. I don't want to
Right.
do it. So
Yeah, they
it's
just
just,
wanna send the money, but it does require that conscious interaction and deeper listening.
and especially like, wow, actually, if you want to help me how to figure it out, how I can send a direct transaction, that will save me so much time. That will save my life. If you want to spend your time helping me to figure these things out or helping other people figure these things out, so I think that's another point to reflect. I had offerings that I offered, and I communicated with a teacher, hey, I want to, offer a percentage of the profits to you and to your land and to the project that you're supporting. And sometimes that has helped, that has worked really well. But other times they're just not even available for that. They're just not even available to send me photos of what the project that they're doing. And then it's like, wow, but I'm here ready to help, but too big of a mission right now. It's like, we need to figure this out today. Can you help us today? I know you want to help us in 3 months from now, but it's like, if it's not today, maybe I'm not available right now. And that's very humbling for me to learn. It's like, oh, it's not just to be available. It's like, it's to really be in relationship. That's what it is. It's to be in relationship. That's what sacred reciprocity is to understand that it's not going to be like you want it to be or how you think it should be. However, when you do it and it works, when these relationships cultivate success, the times that I have donated and you felt so good, or the times that a project was succeeded, like, oh my God, the Honey Queen's finishing this kitchen. We made it. The kitchen is completed. Thank you for all the donations in the world. And to know that I participated on that, even if in a small amount, it's yeah, and I can't even explain the feeling. And then the relationship is forever. And now it's like I'm part of a cause. This person is part of my life, and we will forever be in each other's life. The gratitude from them is, yeah, no words. Just feel that humbleness of like, damn, they really finished their kitchen. It's like, wow, and I'm here worried about my little problems. Wow, now they are, they can eat together. It's like, how deep is that?
I love that. Super cool. Wow, so this is awesome. This conversation is unfolding in a really beautiful way. I would like to kind of pivot to this other part of the conversation that we had talked about. So before we do, is there anything else that you feel called to share?
I feel called to share a prayer, and my prayer is that everyone that's listening to this conversation just get to have an opportunity to be with a very powerful, healing, and beautiful Indigenous leader in one time in their lives, so they can really receive that energy of what it is to live in the forest and to have the wisdom that these people have, and the love and devotion that these people have for the medicines. So my prayer is that these leaders find their people and then their people find their leaders, so that we can really cultivate deeper relationships and support this movement to be stronger and better. Thank you.
This episode of the Four Visions podcast is brought to you by Connect Chocolate, our favorite source for magical mushrooms. The fungi kingdom have played a fundamental role in my journey back to nature, back to the remembrance of our inherent connection with all creation. The mycelium network hold the keys to so many insights, understandings, and potent messages of self-discovery. Mushrooms are ancient and have been supporting humans and the earth for thousands of years. There are few natural remedies that compare to their magnificence and wonder. I'm so grateful that Connect Chocolate exists and that I can share with our Four Visions family a source for the highest quality mushroom microdoses and ceremonial dosage for journeying with fungi. Use our code FVFamily for 10% off your order. My personal favorites are the 30-day protocol and golden ticket. Click the link in our show notes and stock up today. May the fungi continue weaving their wisdom network upon this earth for many generations to come. And now, on to today's episode. So before this call, we were chatting a little bit about the medicine of cannabis, as this is one of the medicines that you hold and carry and share with people. And this is a medicine that I have a lot of respect for and love for. And I would love to talk a little bit about the spirit of the Santa Maria, of the cannabis, because this is a medicine that we haven't highlighted so much on our show thus far. And it is a medicine that is in the canoe of the sacred visionary plants. And so to be able to honor her in this way through today's conversation, I'm very excited to get to learn from you and hear what your thoughts and understandings through your own relationship with her, and to get to educate us today on this beautiful plant.
I feel so honored. Viva Santa Maria! I love that. Well, my path with Santa Maria started in Santo Daime Church. If you don't know yet, but Santo Daime is a tradition that in some churches, they work with cannabis as a sacrament with their Daime ceremonies, which is their ayahuasca brew. And that's not every ceremony, that's not every church. It's really some of them. And the work is to, at some point of the ceremony, people smoke cannabis. And that was my true introduction to cannabis. Before that, in Brazil, cannabis is a drug. You buy cannabis in the same place you buy cocaine and crack. It's all in the same pile. So I haven't had good experiences with cannabis, even though my friends had. So I didn't like it until I got to experience in a sacred way, in a church, in a sacrament with ayahuasca. And I'll tell you that what came up for me is that when they do that, they say that they're praying for Santa Maria, Mother Mary, the mother of Jesus. And Santo Daime has, a blend with Christianity. And you can see in the altar, there's always a Jesus, a Mother Mary. They're always there. And I didn't really like that. I was very against Christianity. It was a huge block for me to go to Santo Daime. But because that was the people I knew and I really wanted to sit with the medicine, I opened myself to that. And I did feel, this beautiful connection with Christ consciousness. I understood that it was all the gratitude and the feel of gratitude. Until one day, I remember going to these ceremonies, and the ceremonies were very long, like 16, 20 hours. It's just like, and I remember just so exhausted. I'm like, God, how these people pray for all this time. I can't wait to be over. And it was always this feeling of, I can't wait for this to be over. I just hated the end of it. Like the last 4 hours was just hell for me. And I also remember that everybody has a book and you're reading the book and everybody's singing the same song. How hard it was for me to follow the book. How hard it was for me to know where we were. I was always distracted with the medicine and judging myself for that. Until one day we smoked cannabis in a ceremony. It was a Santa Maria ceremony. So the book was all about her. All the songs were for her. I remember just closing my eyes and suddenly I knew every word of the lyrics of every single song. I just knew everything. And I sang, my voice open in a way that I never sang like that before. So suddenly I'm like, oh my God, just having the most divine time singing songs, being the first one to flip the page, be the one that's like right there in the force of the medicine. So much that they change your positions, sometimes they prefer you sit somewhere else to support the currency of the work. And I just remember opening my eyes and I was in the circle with a Santa Maria image, gigantic, in front of me. And I'm like, woo, wow. I just sang, I don't know, 20 songs in a row. Didn't even notice I changed position and opened my eyes, and she's right there. That's when I really understood that it was a mother feminine energy. And that feminine energy was very creative. It's very related to music, to song, and to dance. So I love learning that with Santo Daime because I've learned the power of creation through voice and dance, as well as how much strength, body strength I had being in the music. It was kind of like, whoa, God is music, music is God, and music is the answer. Oh God, I understood. I understood what that means. I am part of the music. And that's how my voice really opened up. So I thank Santa Maria to have opened up my voice, because now my voice is an instrument of my life, of my work, of my prayers. And I love singing, and I love singing in community, and I love helping people to open their voice. So for me, she is a creativity teacher. She is the spirit that will heal your mother wounds. You really getting connected to that little baby inside of your mother. That changed my life. So now I can feel when in sacrament, in connection with my spiritual self, my higher self, she's the one that brings that feminine aspect of God for me. And it's all the same by the end of the day. Some people might say, "Oh, blah blah blah." It can be the same for any other people. It's all the same anyways, but this concept really supports me to be connected with that female God energy that is here to create. It's here to inspire the world, to create beauty, that made peace with the parts of myself that wants to play, my inner child. How much of that work is important? We talk a lot about the inner child and healing traumas and healing our inner child. Yes, healing our inner child it's a big deal, and she has been the greatest teacher for me for that, and to really embrace my creativity, my creative channel, and take that seriously, because it's as important in the world as anything else that I do.
That's a beautiful introduction to this part of the conversation, and really, really inspiring to get to hear your own journey with the Santa Maria. And there were some similarities for me as well with one of my some of my first ayahuasca ceremonies also being with the Daime, and really also getting an awakening with the voice through my connection with the Santa Maria. And so I love that there's always parallels when there is, this truth and strong frequency that's undeniable from a spirit of nature. And so I would love to really hone in on how to work with this plant and who this plant is the best fit for. And on the other side, I would love to get into a little bit of a discussion of how this plant fell from her throne and really entered into this place of abuse and disrespect that we find, like you mentioned, being lumped in with drugs, and how a master plant found her way and got lost along the way through the way that we worked with her. And my teacher has his own mythology around this, and I have my own understanding of it, but I would love to hear your thoughts on that, and as well as, being able to provide our listeners, maybe someone who has never worked with Santa Maria, who has never thought of cannabis in this way, who might be listening and have some curiosity, would love to be able to give our listeners as much juicy information and supportive, helpful content that they can utilize to potentially make a decision of whether or not, if they're feeling called to work with this plant, how to and when to.
I had a teacher that once told me that if you see tobacco as the spirit of the father, cannabis and coca are named as the spirit of the mother. in some indigenous traditions. And if you see these three plants, tobacco, cannabis, and coca, are the most abused plants in the world. How odd to really see, wow, these three plants are named as one of the most powerful plant spirits in this earth, and at the same time responsible for so much darkness, harm, and disease. I really understand that this is really designed by the system. Let's get the most powerful plants, let's transform them into poison so that nobody knows their sacred power. And now we block that from the world. We get tobacco, we put chemicals in tobacco, and we make people smoke tobacco. We get cannabis, we put cannabis just like any other drug. It's the middle world. It's going to be the one that's going to introduce you to all the bad stuff, and we put that so make people lazy and addicted. And then we get the coca, we put poison in it, gasoline, transform into cocaine. Now it's the worst drug, kills people, and all that. So there's this fine line, this teacher was saying, this fine line between wisdom and insanity. And you're saying that cannabis is really that line. It has that fine line. That's the work of it. It can take you to wisdom. It can take you to insanity. And what really divides this line is your integrity. It's your devotion and your connection to that divine spirit. So we have to approach these plants as a spirit, that you can talk to them, that they can talk to you. It's an open channel, spiritual voice that is working through you, that somehow you've been called. Maybe you smoke cigarettes or tobacco and you didn't choose that, right? It just happened. The system made that happen. Now you get the choice to recreate a new relationship with it once you know the wisdom behind it. So I see cannabis the same way. Most people don't know that this has been a tool, a sacrament for spirituality. Most people don't know that. So first is to know that, hey, it is. Not just is, but it's also one of the most powerful ones. That once you see the behind the veil of what's going on in the world, you will know the amount of money the system makes just making cannabis legal and illegal. Like this game moves so much money, it's like billions of dollars, that people don't even know why. If it wasn't so powerful, you wouldn't move so much money. You wouldn't make the government be so worried about it. So that's number one, to know that, hey, this is actually gold. I see it as gold. There's even books that talk about cannabis being named as gold in the Bible because it's the medicine of abundance. And it heals so much. It heals problems of the mind. It heals problems in the body. It heals problems in the spirit. And he also is here to create. So I think first is the person understand that, wow, this is a sacred plant. All that I've been taught is not true. And now I have to be very conscious of where my medicine is coming from and how do I choose to relate to it. So one thing is to just smoke weed all day and watch Netflix all day. And that's all you do. And then you blame yourself that you're not doing your thing. The cannabis makes you lazy and makes you procrastinate and makes you overeat and makes you this and makes you that. The other thing is to be showing up for your life and working with cannabis to open up your creative channel. Or maybe working with cannabis to release from stress of the day and puts you in a meditative presence so you can get some body work practice. You can move your body. You can focus on yourself for a moment. Maybe it's there for you to not be in the medication, to replace a medication that you're taking, or some body pain if you're sore or hurt. So it's really our choice. It's really our choice. For me, it was so powerful to see the difference because in Brazil, these communities that work in Santo Daime and work with cannabis, everything is very illegal. They have to really grow their plants in their really specific way, unless it's part of the church that they can grow in their own garden. It has so many legalities to make it happen, to having an organic plant in their hands. And then I moved to the US. I remember got a job as a trimmer, and I was trimming weed and just I got to really see the whole cannabis business in Northern California, which was something that everybody talks about in the world. And California, you have the best weed in the world, and all these things, and you have access to all the things. I saw that. I was part of that, and it changed my life. But I remember trimming one day in a house that I looked around, the house was pure trash. The people were trashy, the house was trashy, the plants just like hanging upside down in the middle of the house, in the middle of the trash, in the middle of it was just gross. And I remember just looking around like, wow, this is just like killing a cow. That's just like what they do with the animals in the meat industry. They're literally doing that with the weed. So it's not just because you're in California that's highest quality weed in the world. It doesn't mean that he also carries so much energy from, abuse. Because by the end of the day, she is abundant. So a lot of people are just working with her for money. And that's just the reality of it. So it's just the awareness of the power that she has. And then that responsibility of like, okay, how can I be in right relationship with her? Because yeah, if you go to a dispensary and you're paying $100 for an eighth of weed that you have no idea where it comes from, and just because it says organic in the bottle, so it's good. And then people have all kinds of paranoia and all kinds of things. So I think it's really part of how ready you are to relate to a plant that's very powerful. Same thing with tobacco. They're both very powerful plants. Are you ready for their power? Because it's going to bring all your shit. You're going to have to do work on yourself, and you're going to have to show up in high responsibility for your life in order to relate to that power in a good way that's good for you, and it's good for the plant, and it's good for the world. It requires you to be ready. So my intention is to expand more cannabis circles. There's a need for more cannabis ceremonies. There's a need for people really taking that plant as sacred and wanting to incorporate good practices, because it's a psychedelic, just like any other psychedelic. It's a very beautiful experience if led properly. Some practitioners will really bring breathwork practices, therapy practices. I work a lot with coaching with cannabis. I work with creativity, art expansion. So there's many facets of this work. She's so broad. That's what I love about her. I believe that each person has there's the right weed for them. If you feel like you've never had a good cannabis experience, I believe that you probably haven't done in a good environment that felt really safe. And you probably haven't found the strain that really works for you, because that's different for everybody. There's not what's good for me, the best strain for me might not be the best strain for you. And I think it requires some research and training, practice your own work with it to find your own. And when you do find it, I do believe that in a safe space, it can bring so many benefits to your life if you have the responsibility to carry it with respect.
Mhm. Hmm. So insightful, and I love hearing your passion for this plant, and what a beautiful person to introduce this plant on the podcast. So I'm feeling really grateful to just get to bring this to our listeners, and get to give Santa Maria the honor of having this conversation here and getting to share this perspective with our listeners. For anyone who might never have heard any of this before, this can be radical, this perspective, and the way that you articulated it is so beautiful. You can really feel that you have aligned with the spirit of the cannabis and that you are a messenger of her and a servant of her. So I'm really feeling really grateful to get to bring this to our community and our tribe. And I've always I'm holding this prayer, and I was raised in Northern California. So for me, I've been around this plant from childhood. It's just part of our culture out here. And so I've always held this prayer of the resurrection of this plan, of the return, of being able to honor her in the fullest capacity that she deserves and that her power really calls for. And so this feels, very right. And it's this process that we're in as a collective consciousness, and I love this term that you mentioned, this psychedelic renaissance. And that we really are in this beautiful time. So many people are waking up and returning back to the medicines of the earth. And this process that we're in has many different steps, many different phases. And I do firmly believe that the resurrection of all sacred plants to their thrones of wisdom is a vital step in a return back to harmony with nature and the way forward of how our work with plant medicines in modern society is destined to evolve through. And so we are in this very interesting period of capitalistic tendencies and desire to, get the most out of her that we can. But I truly believe that the consciousness is raising on a collective level, and that these types of conversations are the ones that are going to inspire more people to come into right relationship with cannabis, with tobacco, with all of the sacred plants, with coca, and this is the way forward. So I'm feeling really grateful and excited to be able to be in this conversation in this moment. And I would love to just before we close this topic, ask you to maybe share for someone who is living in an area where they don't have access to a farmer or they can't source their medicine, but they feel called to work with this plant. What would you recommend for someone living in a more isolated region?
Thank you for this question. I wish I had the perfect answer. I think it really depends on where you are in the world. We have to consider that cannabis is illegal in most places in the world still. And we need to check in with our tolerance, risk tolerance, how we call it in the plant spirit school. Each of us has a risk tolerance, and it's not up to me to say what's your risk tolerance and how to get the right medicine for you. What I recommend for these people is to connect, even if it's online, if you don't have a personal, close connection, but connect with these communities online. Connect with other people that are doing this work sacredly so that your personal relationships can start being built. And I believe that that's how things unfold. The right place, the right person, the right time, things come into form when we gather in community. So if you feel like you want to have a sacred relationship with cannabis, you want to call in the people that are in this path. And the people that are in this path will provide you a container, will provide you an integration space, will provide you the space needed for this medicine to come to you in a way that is meant to come to you. One thing that I want to mention is that I think it's a really good information is that sometimes people think about cannabis, they think about Bob Marley. And I love that because Bob Marley, he was adopted Ethiopian Christian roots. And the difference that Bob Marley, one of the things that made Bob Marley really stand out in the world is that he said that cannabis reveals you to yourself. Before that, people were seeing God as an external thing. There was me, there's the king. The king is connected to God. The king is a disciple from Jesus. The king is the special one. And then Bob Marley brought that, the Christian roots, to the concept of God is within yourself. True. You are part of it. You're not it, you're part of it. And I think that changed everything. That's when you see the Rastafarian people, they have so much good in their hearts. They just want the best. They want simplicity. They want a simple life. They want their families, their children, their music, and their weed. And I think that's really like, yes, simplicity of life, joy, and pleasure in the little things. That's what the medicine is really, it's really bringing up. And even the concept of abundance, it's like, yes, abundance is present for all of us. Money and is just one source of exchange, that we also get to do our own work to heal that relationship, to be in relationship with money. So I think the cannabis brings so much for us in so many different ways, that I'm sharing this with you, because you might have experienced paranoia, or you might feel you're very self-critical when you work with cannabis. You get yourself in the loop, or you don't want to do anything. All these are paranoia, right? Just really think something bad's going to happen, really negative looping. That's very common. And I would say that that's not your fault. I believe that's a collective of the way that this plant has been spread in the world, and an opportunity for you to take that into your own internal process, just like when you are in an ayahuasca ceremony. And sometimes that she brings a very tough medicine, a very tough message for you. And we take that as like sacred, as the work. And then when we get into cannabis and then it feels like a negative experience, oh, I don't like the medicine. It's just not for
It's
me.
not for me. Yeah.
It's not my medicine. It's like she's bringing up things for you to work on, just
There's the
like any other
mirror.
medicine.
There's the mirror. Are you gonna look at it?
So that's why I think the goal is sacred spaces. Doing that for yourself, sacred space for yourself, and sacred spaces in community as well. I think that's when bringing back the crown and putting her where she deserves. That's how it's going to come through. I'm holding that prayer.
Mm-hmm. I love it. This is so great, and I'm really grateful to be able to connect you with our community, because I feel after this conversation really good about being able to yeah, share our network and offer you as a connection for anyone who feels called to work with cannabis in this way. And I know that you host circles in the LA area, as well as offer different ways online to connect with you. And so I really just want to thank you so much for your time, Lua. It's been a joy and a pleasure to connect with you and get to receive your medicine. And on that note, would you please share a little bit more about the work that you're doing and anything that you have coming up that might be of interest to our listeners?
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure to be here with Four Visions podcast and spread and connect with this message with this audience. If you are listening, I appreciate you for listening, for being part of this conversation. I want to invite you to reach out to me, to talk to me. I always love hearing how these teachings, these stories are landing for you somehow. And if you have any questions or want to touch base about anything related to your journey of all these topics that were shared, I am super available and will love to connect. I currently live in Los Angeles, California. So here I host events, retreats throughout the year, as well as online trainings. So I do these retreats seasonally. We work with multiple medicines. Been a Kumbo practitioner for over a decade now. And I host my Kumbo Body Bliss retreat in the spring and in the fall. And this is an opportunity for people that really want to deepen their work with Kumbo and experience the traditional 3 cycles. So we do 3 sessions in 3 days. And we continue the journey with an amazing cleanse for 10 days. So it's an amazing transformational experience for people that are really seeking to cleanse their bodies, wanting to do that big reset, want support from an integration focused container, really want to adapt new life changes and behaviors and diet within your life, and be able to experience the full initiation, the 3 sessions of Kumbo. So that's something that's really amazing that I love supporting my community with, to heal addictions, to reset their minds, as well as a mastermind that's coming up for me 2024, in which is a place for ceremony guardians to really get together so we can learn harm reduction, trauma informed facilitation, and hape and cannabis are our main teachers. So that's an online container that's coming up next year that I'm super excited to invite those that want to connect with me. And yeah, thank you so much for everything. I look forward to seeing you around, share magical spaces with you in some way or another.
Hmm. Thank you so much, Aluna Lua. We'll make sure to include in the show notes links to her website and to the Combo Bliss retreat as well, and more information coming soon regarding the mastermind. So thank you so much, sister. What a pleasure and an honor, honoring your time, and really grateful to you for being here, making this happen, and for all of our listeners for tuning in.
I would love to add that. So I'm here in LA. I work 101 with clients in integration coaching. And that's a really good space for artists and healers that are wanting to build their business focused in reciprocity, faith based, and sharing medicine with the world, whether it being guardianship and holding space or even facilitation. So I love doing 101. This is something that I don't have many spots available for that, but I do have some spots available for that, and we'll love to connect with you if you're called to that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Many blessings. On behalf of the Four Visions family, we want to thank you for listening to our podcast. We hope you have enjoyed this conversation and have gained seeds of wisdom that will nourish your spiritual path. If you have a moment, please leave us a review, as this helps us to reach more people. For more resources and information about the plant path, and for the highest quality spiritual tools and botanicals, please visit us at fourvisions.com. We are grateful for your support and look forward to continuing this journey with you all. Until next time.